We just want a couple of seconds from a sentence or two from each of the issue holders, not about the actions and the outcomes, but just a few reflections on the process and how it was for them during this coach and solving session, because this is the first time we've actually had to focus on a number of self-originating issues. So perhaps can I start with Chris and Ben? What's your sentence about how was it? Did it work?
It was emotional. Well, at the heart of what we were talking about was really about emotional literacy. And Lance actually said it. He was talking about a client who'd been in a service for quite a long time, who was presumed not to be able to speak, but then for arbitrary reasons ended up in a different service. And somebody there had an emotional engagement with that person, and to quote, said that they saw some fire in their eyes, and that person ended up speaking. And it's what we were kind of discussing was really how you get that emotional literacy across everything, because it happens in pockets within services that are tailored for particular client groups. Actually, those people are members of society and actually have the potential to come into contact with all sorts of other services. So that's where we were at. I don't know that we found the answer for how you roll it out,
but it was emotional within the group as well.
I don't know. I can't speak for everybody.
Alison?
I haven't really thought about this sentence. I'm not really sure what I want to say about it. The process worked really well for me. I was very comfortable with it. I felt that people gave a lot. And I feel quite emotional. I feel really touched by the care that people gave in terms of trying to give me some different insights and some different ways of looking at what. I changed my question again. So I feel like I've got away with something more valuable than I even started to look for. So it was a fantastic process for me. And I feel like I've learned a lot. And I wanted to now just go away and write it down, because there's lots more questions that have emerged from it. But it's moved me to a different place. And I'm really grateful. Thank you.
It just, the sum of the parts is not enough. It's the whole that counts.
Well, thank you. I have an excellent experience exchanging this information with our colleagues here from different countries. And I found out that the topic that I brought to is very complex and huge complex, but I found there is some universal kind of principle, which is we are going to have, as previous group saying, healthcare is right. So we deal with that, but we found that to achieve that, we have to make it balance between social goal or public goal and private interest, private goals. That's the conflict, that's the intricate one, where the doctor, for example, willing to maximize profit, while the public want to maximize equity. How we deal this equilibrium, that's very, very important.
Thank you. Chris, how was it?
So this was a very, very valuable experience as far as getting ideas and crystallizing thoughts around the question. So I started with a question of this notion of a community which wants to develop what's called a Woodlawn Children's Promise Zone. And currently it is conceived as being based upon schools and improving teaching and improving schools, and that is sort of the foundation for this intervention. But as I listened to the experts around the table, I realized that maybe some of my assumptions and some of our early thoughts are maybe not on target. So one point is perhaps we should not initially look at schools as the place that should be addressed, because in fact, the model that we are looking at, to perhaps, institute in our community actually did not start with schools. It started with social services and then ultimately evolved to address schooling and education. So they reminded me of what actually occurred with the original program. And then one of my assumptions was, well, obviously we will work with community residents, adult community residents. But the title of the program is the Woodlawn Children's Promise Zone. So if you think about it, the beneficiaries, or the group which we are hoping to work with, is the children. So maybe, in addition to talking with the parents and the teachers and the pastors and the adults, maybe we should really spend a lot of time talking to the children, because these are people who, as Joanne pointed out, may not be getting good grades, but are actually really quite smart and are doing quite well to negotiate their lives in a very challenging environment. So I think the notion of redirecting maybe some of our attention from schools and from the adults and from the power structure to the actual beneficiaries and the folks whom we are trying to help, I think makes a ton of sense. And then Giovanna pointed out that in South Africa they've had some success with cell phones and portals and technology. And I think that's great. And that can be a very sort of efficient way to get information from kids and to also give information to kids. So this has been a very helpful experience, and it has really reframed my thinking about the project.
Thank you. So testing out those assumptions is very important in reframing. Yeah.
From the questions presented by the attendees of this table, I get more clear understanding and on the differences between the medical system in different countries. So that's what I'm going to say. Thank you.
And Steph, immediate.
Thank you. Well, actually, I don't know really what to say. I think I'm more puzzled now than before. Talking about leadership, the future leadership, change for change. That's I think we ended up in some sort of philosophical, discussion. And what can I comment on that? Was about. My point was about how to pendle between myself as a part of the system and to the subgroups or the whole in the system. How do I do as a manager to pendle? And we find out there are silos in the organization, containers that is not able to pendle. Well, that's a problem. And then went back to what are the values, the individual values in people as manager and members in the organization. And I think we ended up like it's a value per se that decide what you are doing and how you behave in an organization. And that means a manager cannot tell somebody to do something if it's not, and you will not act if it's not according to your values. And what does it mean for a manager or a leader? That means if you don't understand the values, the individual values, if you're not able to understand what they are and how people act, you cannot change. That was my ending up in it. And I didn't get a real solution on the problem, but thank you anyhow.
So mixed experiences, but having the space and having the time and listening to colleagues and different views is just so important. So partly we need to think about how we can do this more often in ordinary settings, not just these extraordinary settings that we find ourselves in now. Okay, it's lunchtime, but there are two treats. One we get to get some food, but it's downstairs in the basement, and you either have to go to the lifts across on the left or on the right, or down on the main steps of the lifts and go across the lobby and then go down to the basement. The garden court is where lunch is, and we have tables. We're not eating outside, unless you want to do this work with some people from the social media group. I'm sure they'd be very happy. But we're going downstairs to eat. So the first treat is some food. The second treat is the press would like a collective photograph at 1:25. So if you